Pennsylvania is set to be one of the most heavily contested battleground states in next year's midterms. Republicans are aiming to take back seats with help from suburban voters. This demographic proved to be a key piece to former President Trump's victory in the state in 2016. But they helped elect President Biden last November. With competitive races expected for the House, Senate, and governor, both parties will be slugging it out in the suburbs. Holly Otterbein took an in-depth look at this and joins me now from Philadelphia. She's a national political reporter for Politico. Holly, welcome. So in spite of President Biden's comfortable margins of victory in the suburban Philadelphia vote in 2020, Republicans did well in recent elections there. So what's changed?
Yeah, I mean, under the Trump era, Democrats did great in the Philadelphia suburbs. You know, they flipped several seats. They continued to make gains, even, at a faster pace than they had been previously. Demographic changes that were in their favor continued to happen. That has come to a halt somewhat in some suburban areas around Philadelphia, particularly Bucks County, which is seen as the swingiest of the swing counties in the Philadelphia suburbs. Republicans had a great time there on Election Day this month. They flipped row offices that Democrats had claimed in the Trump era. Their district attorney won re-election, running as a moderate, and the state Supreme Court justice won in Bucks County as well. And when I talked to Republicans, both in Bucks County and in DC, they said essentially, these candidates in the Philly suburbs, they did not embrace Trump. And that is something of a model for the election next year. They didn't necessarily, run as an anti-Trump, but they didn't fully embrace him. It was much like what happened in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin.
So that was going to be my question is, about the influence of President Trump. How is his presence or his notable absence in some areas factoring into things in Pennsylvania ahead of the midterms?
So this was something Republicans, particularly in the Philadelphia suburbs, could pull off this year in an off-year election in these races for, sheriff and district attorney and Supreme Court justice. Trump did not get involved. They were kind of under the radar races. He didn't endorse. And so they were able to kind of keep him at arm's length, but also not upset the Trump base. That's going to be a lot harder next year, at least in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure around the country, it's a similar situation. In PA, Trump has already endorsed a Senate candidate, Sean Parnell. In the gubernatorial race, he has ties to many of the candidates. The front runner right now is Lou Barletta, who's a former congressman who was actually one of the first members of Congress to endorse Trump in 2016. And so that's going to be a little bit harder for Republicans to pull off. That's going to be their challenge. But still, Republicans are looking at this month's election results in the Philadelphia suburbs, and they're extremely happy, with what happened in Bucks County in particular.
Okay, so what about Democrats? What are Democratic officials that you've spoken with saying about the suburban vote and more broadly about the midterms?
Democratic officials and, advisors and consultants that I talked to said that basically what happened this month in the Philadelphia suburbs, but also the suburbs of Virginia and New Jersey, where the gubernatorial races got a lot more attention, that it's kind of a warning for what could happen in 2022 for them. That, these concerns about inflation, concerns about the broader economy, crime, education, all of these things they expect to play in 2022 as well. And, basically they are counting on the Build Back Better plan to pass Congress, and then for Biden and other Democrats, congressional Democrats, et cetera, to be able to really sell these programs to voters. And without that, they don't think that they have a chance.
All right, I want to ask specifically about the Pennsylvania gubernatorial race. Who are the front runners at this stage for both parties?
So like I said earlier, the front runner in the gubernatorial race right now, at least in the polling, but it's very, it's early, is Lou Barletta, the former congressman who has Trump ties. He's got folks who worked with Trump who are on his team. So he's got that going for him. He has a longstanding relationship with Trump, but he doesn't have his endorsement yet. He says, he's working for it. There's also Bill McSwain is another candidate who, is trying to basically run as a prosecutor in the gubernatorial race, kind of to counter Josh Shapiro, who is the Democrat who's running, and he's the front runner in the Democratic race. He's really the only person who is running on the Democratic side at this moment. He's really been able to clear the field because of his fundraising skills, because of his political skills. It's actually very interesting, for such a wide open race, there's only one Democrat running. It's Josh Shapiro. He's the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, and he's basically running a campaign right now saying, that Republicans are trying to, support the big lie, and that, Pennsylvania basically needs a veto in the governor's office, the way that Tom Wolf has been a veto on conservative legislation that is passed out of the PA legislature.
All right, well, November 2022 will be here before we know it. Holly Otterbein. Holly, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me.